Hi, everybody. Welcome to our fourth vodcast with Grant Lichman. Building on our great conversations that we had from before March break, we were talking about leadership. We're going to move this conversation to focusing on the role of teachers and then broadly into what obstacles we need to be aware of in order to actually facilitate and make these changes. So, Grant, welcome to our talk. Thanks so much again for being here. It's always exciting to have you and your expertise. You talk about the change in title from teacher to educator, and in the most innovative schools, what is the role of the teacher? What part do they play in making change and causing change? And then I'd ask you, what are the characteristics of these teachers?
Well, thanks again for having me, gentlemen. Yeah, I really try as much as possible, and I'm not perfect at this, but I try to stop referring to the people in the classrooms as teachers and the folks who are in offices as administrators. I really feel all of us are educator-leaders or educator/leaders. The best metaphor that I've come up with and that I use in the book for both teachers and administrators is as educator as farmer. We've all heard the idea that teachers shouldn't be a sage on the stage any longer, should be a guide on the side. And I just fundamentally think that it's not great use of language and it's not great imagery. First of all, because teachers are never on the side of anything. Teachers are slap dab in the middle of the learning process. And so when I thought about what I think the characteristics are of a teacher educator leader in the classroom, this idea of farmer came up to me, because what does a great farmer do? He or she, the first thing they do is they lay out a fence line, the boundary conditions of where they're going to grow the crop, and then they prepare the ground. They might be breaking up some sod or taking some big rocks out of the field. And then their real job, the characteristics of a great farmer, I think, are the characteristics of a great teacher going forward. And that is, they're there to provide nutrients to the system and to do some judicious pruning and weeding. And so that's really, this idea more of a teacher as someone who tries something new, tries best practices, sees what's best for their students, and then supplies the ingredients to the system, does some facilitating and coaching, but is not there to do the growing on behalf of their students. So that's kind of the metaphor, and I think if people can keep that in mind, that evolving role, I think it starts to help people in the classroom understand what the role and the characteristics are.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by hiring teachers with adaptability?
Well, I think in the past, in terms of the hiring process, so much of the hiring process in both public and private schools has been based around, where did you go to school, how well do you know the subject that you're supposed to be teaching, which again is putting a teacher into an immediate silo, and how well do you manage a class in a traditional sense. And I don't think those are the characteristics that we want to model for our students. And so we should move higher up on the list of hiring and supporting and retaining teachers who have proven abilities and willingness and desire to grow and learn as individuals as part of an overall learning community, to be creative, to be collaborative with their team members, willing to take a risk and to try things. Those are characteristics we need to both hire for and develop and reward.
And I think you bring, that concept of leaders working with teachers or hiring teachers or building that type of culture. I think you bring that to the forefront. So, in light of that, what is the role of the school administrative leadership in supporting change in this way, in fostering these characteristics, whether it's outside professional development or internal professional development? But how do they support the way that teachers need to work or can work with the curriculum, with their students, and with assessments?
Well, I think administrators, again, I try to not create a real boundary or silo there. I think administrators have to exhibit a lot of the same characteristics of an administrator as a farmer. I had this discussion with a superintendent of a large school district that I have been working with over the last couple of years, and as I described that role of administrator or educator-leader as a farmer, he kind of paused for a minute and he goes, wow, he goes, that really puts it in perspective. Here I am at the district office, and he says, I'll be honest, at our district office, I think the main mindset here of district administrators has been that we're here to guard the tower and the walls, to keep the people inside doing the right things and keep the people keep things on the outside, quote unquote bad things at bay, and that's just fundamentally wrong in the current environment. And so I think the administrators have to exhibit those same characteristics, and I would say there are maybe three that would be more specific to the administrative role. First, they have to really align resources in support of that work that they want to see in the classroom. They have to provide the resources to the teachers, just as the teachers are going to provide those resources to their students. And then administrators need to not just allow for, but they need to expect growth, personal and professional growth amongst the teachers. Organizations, good organizations, are organizations that learn and grow, and that's based on the learning and growth of individuals. And then third, they have to embrace, not just allow for, but they have to embrace the concepts of risk that we've talked about and model that for the other teachers in the organization. If administrators are not embracing risk and expecting growth, then the teachers aren't going to do it. It's not going to filter down to the student level.
Brent, you talked a little bit about aligning resources, and I think that was one of the chapters that really resonated with me. And you've mentioned a few things that I can think of being demonstrated by some companies that we're familiar with, like Google, offering employees 20% time and some creative ways that they're enabling their employees to kind of follow their passions and take risks and so on. What creative ways have you seen that schools are kind of following that path or enabling their teachers, or ideas that you wish would be more, would circulate more and be adopted broadly?
There are so many, and I'll just, when you mention Google, there's another thing that Google and other, not just Google, but many companies are doing now. I read about it in Todd Rose's great new book, The End of Average, that there's been a real shift amongst a number of large companies when they are reviewing resumes and hiring people to really either de-emphasize or not even look any longer. If someone's been out of college for 2 or 3 or 4 years, they don't even look at where that person went to college or what their GPA or what their graduate record test scores were. They're looking for real evidence of being able to work within the organization. More specifically at schools, you see the sorts of things like making sure that teachers have time to collaborate, but to stay focused and collaborate on work that they're going to do together, maybe developing interdisciplinary courses, teaching across classroom boundaries. They have time to go visit each other, even if it's for very short periods, 3-4 minutes a day or 3 or 4 minutes a week, to go visit each other and then give some rapid feedback, the sort of instructional rounds or rapid classroom visits. Ensuring the amount of money that is spent on professional development is actually extremely large. There are reports of $18 billion a year in the United States spent on educational professional development, most of which is largely wasted because we know it's not done in a way that is actually effective. But independent schools, especially your folks' world, we are going to have to be allocating a great deal more time and money for effective professional development, effective networked, collaborative, peer-to-peer, interest-focused professional development in the years ahead as the rate of change continues to actually accelerate in order to help people retool themselves.
That's great. It's such a powerful vision, too, of the future, I think, for independent schools as well. So just shifting away from the teacher now, we've talked a fair bit over the last 4 conversations about change and innovation and what is required. And I think our audience, and I certainly know that Justin and I are, I think we need to know a little bit more about the obstacles to that change. So in your book you have 5. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to ask you to rank them in order. And I tried to articulate this smoothly, but I'm going to ask you to rank them in order of what's most deadly. Like, what's the one that's going to kill innovation more than others?
Well, and I appreciate you sending emails in advance so that you don't put me completely on the spot with these. So I did have a chance to think about it. So there's no question. I'm not going to rank all 5 of them, but I will give you the top 2, and I don't think there's any question why these are the top 2. Here's the bottom line. What we know about organizations that are successfully innovate, especially in times of rapid change, comes from a long history that goes back to the Renaissance. And what I've been able to call out of my investigation, research, and exposure to that body of knowledge is there are 2 things that really enable or are critical for an organization to innovate and to change. And those are the willingness and ability to take risks and the extent to which individuals and the organization are connected primarily externally and very much beyond those sort of silo boundaries, connected to people at the margin of our experience and connecting with others who go beyond our experience. And so it's pretty easy to convert those 2 critical elements of innovation to obstacles to innovation, both of which are unfortunately highly present at just about every school. And so the 2 biggest obstacles, number 1 is fear. If you or your organization are afraid to take risks, you cannot innovate. It's just impossible. It's like physics. I think it's the physics of organizational change. And then the second one, and unfortunately, as we've talked in the past, schools do have an unfortunate relationship with the concept of risk. There's always been a greater downside to people taking a risk in a school than there has been an upside. We have to turn that around. So it's overcoming that fear. And then secondly, what prevents us from being truly connected beyond our classroom, beyond our subject, beyond our grade level, beyond the title, the hat that we wear, teacher, administrator, which is why I want to break down those titles and not use them as much, call people educator leaders. These are the silos that are present in our schools. Schools are just incredibly, siloized, if that's, a horrible use of the English language, are very siloized or balkanized places. And most schools have been that way. This is my classroom, this is my cohort, this is my grade level or my subject level, my division, my campus, my school, and we have to break those every way that we can in order to have a chance for innovation to succeed.
Thank you. I think putting it that way, you make some pretty compelling, compelling points. If you can probably think in your head of a few teachers, administrators, leaders you travel to embody some of these things, what would be one tip you'd give to a new teacher that would help them emulate maybe some of the characteristics or habits of some of those who you hold up as doing it really well?
I'll tell you, Justin. And this isn't just for new teachers. This is every teacher. And once I kind of locked onto this, now I'm starting to see it everywhere, which hopefully is not an observation bias, but I'm starting to see it everywhere. If there's one bit of advice I could give to all of us, is anything that a teacher does, think about all the things that you do in a day, and ask yourself, couldn't I have turned the responsibility for doing that over to my students? And this is, everything from handing a piece of paper to somebody else, to taking the attendance, to deciding what we're going to study, to reading a passage, to leading a class, to, everything. And I think if teachers will look at themselves, if they'll ask their colleagues to come in and give short visits and just give feedback on that one element, couldn't I have turned that bit of the process over to my students and allowed them to own it? I think teachers will see a radical transformation in student engagement. If you're a teacher who is, struggling a little bit that there are some students in the back of the class somewhere, who are not engaged, who are not elbows up into the learning process, ask yourself, wouldn't they be more engaged if they were doing those things rather than me doing it? And it is a fundamental shift, and I've seen some just classrooms go from here to here, from 0 to 60, just doing that alone.
Yeah, it is such a simple and yet compelling question that that we can ask it of administrators as well, for teachers and those things. That's really powerful. Grant, we're going to close it off there. I love these conversations because your energy, but also your insight, that powerful insight that you have based on your experience. It's so valuable for us, and hopefully for all of us who are watching. So we're actually looking forward to speaking with you again on April 10th as part of our Summer LI module that Justin and I are delivering, called Design Thinking for Education. And we're hoping that we can have another inspiring conversation there. So thank you so much, Grant.
Great, appreciate it. It's always great talking with you guys, and through you to the great folks up in Canada.
Thanks, Grant.